Hello, my name is Vincent Keys, and here is my presentation of my research paper and project for English 118. For my introduction, I felt a deep passion for this topic because throughout this entire course, I have been exposed to critical pieces of media that everyone needs to be aware of. We have a problem at the border. We find ourselves in an era of extreme divide, especially politically, and this has had a daunting effect within many areas of our society. Extremism is doing much of its harm at the U.S.-Mexico border, as we have some people telling immigrants to go back to where you came from, and others like myself calling for immigrants to be respected as human beings. I have gotten to know the stories of these immigrants over the last 8 weeks, and they deserve love and acceptance, which is currently the opposite of what they are receiving. Many of these immigrants are coming to America because they have no options left, and they are willing to risk their lives for a shot at the American dream, while they are not welcome in the eyes of many people actively hoping they don't reach the other side of their journey. My outline for these works has seen some changes in the past weeks, as I focused more on American history than my original intention to research border identity. The main argument behind both of these works has remained stagnant, as my research paper was based in the idea that the U.S. ethnic diversity narrative needs context, and my project focused on giving immigrants a voice to share their personal experiences that matter most in regards to this border discussion. As I begin to talk about my research findings, the most important piece of my research has to do with the events of Plymouth Rock in the 1600s, as this is brought up in both my research paper and my project. The project takes a microscopic view of these events, picking up on key themes that showcase a troubling parallelism to President Trump's border policies and the narrative that has arisen from that. My major finding is that the Wampanoag tribe signed a treaty with the Pilgrims in 1621, and after the Pilgrims tried to get the Wampanoag to conform to their lifestyle, tensions rose. These tensions reached a high point in 1674, in which King Philip's War took place, which led to the death and displacement of the majority of the natives that lived on the land prior to the Pilgrims showing up. The treaty is important because it condemned either party to hurt one another, carry weapons when they meet, and steal items. The actions that led up to the war did not necessarily break the treaty, but microaggression after microaggression became an insurmountable hurdle to get over in regard to the Pilgrim-Wampanoag relationship. Part 2 of my research findings. The Pilgrims showcased pride in their victory in this war, attaching the dead tribe leader's head to a spike in Plymouth for 2 decades. The Pilgrims were immigrants who found the land during a search for religious awakening. They pushed their religion on the natives, undermined the authority of the tribe leader by subjecting them to English law, and pushed them back into smaller and smaller parts of their own land. The natives taught the Pilgrims how to live on their land, and the Pilgrims never even accepted them for being different. They just wanted everyone on the land to be united by one common goal. Their use of King Philip's head as a trophy sends the message that they defeated their enemy, and that this is their foretold land. Now, America is predominantly white, and the events of Plymouth Rock are the first event in American history that can serve to explain the unwelcoming attitude towards colored immigrants that is so prevalent in our society today. To wrap up my research findings and literature review, while Plymouth Rock is the main focus of my project, my research on America's history and their involvement with border rhetoric is the backbone of my research. I discovered that the reason we are here is due to extreme anti-nativism, yet there have been at least 3 outbreaks of virulent nativism throughout America between the 1800s and present day. As Catholic immigration from Germany and Ireland was rising at a rapid rate, total arrivals peaked at 428,000 in 1854. This surge in foreign arrivals, combined with the onset of a recession, caused panic throughout the nation, leading to the founding of the Nativist American Party. Nativism is defined as the policy of protecting the interests of native-born or established inhabitants against those of immigrants. Ironic considering what was discussed in the previous slides. Continuing on, immigration reached a new peak of 789,000 in the 1880s, and although China only accounted for 5% of immigrants arriving at the time, nativist settlement focused on the, quote, yellow peril of Chinese immigrants. These immigrants were portrayed as a threat to the wages and working conditions of native white workers, and the Chinese Exclusion Act was eventually passed in 1882. Even though America has been defined as a melting pot, nativism is still alive and well within American society today. Things started to look good as excellent GDP results led Congress to pass legislation ending restrictions on immigration from Southern and Eastern Europe, as well as repealing prohibitions on entries from Asia. Nativism came back into the spotlight in 2016 due to the political extremism that resulted from Trump's first presidency. His calling for a wall at the border has been more destructive than any of us can comprehend, and while the border is incomplete, the damage these words have inflicted brought upon a divided conflict at the U.S.-Mexico border. Moving on to what this narrative currently needs, I feel as though the current prevalence of unjust views within the border rhetoric can be credited to this era of mass misinformation that we find ourselves in. The more that technology has expanded, the more that it has become malleable in serving as a weapon for nativists to develop their next common enemy. The impact of a political leader's words continues to be overlooked amidst the border rhetoric conflict, and this quote from President Trump seemingly ignited a community to come together against a common enemy. When Mexico sends its people, they're not sending their best. They're not sending you. They're not sending you. They're bringing drugs. They're bringing crime. They're rapists. What we need to do is go backwards. We need to remind ourselves of our country's history and come together to prevent history from repeating itself once again. We need to understand that this issue was created out of thin air, as Trump's call to build a great big wall came 9 years after undocumented immigration from Mexico effectively ended. We need to take ourselves out of the narrative that people with power use to divide us from integrating all cultures and communities together as one. We need to think about the 80-mile journey that migrants willingly endured just for a shot at getting to America. We need to acknowledge, embrace, and accept these efforts, en route to repainting the border as a powerful reminder that we will always be stronger when united together. In discussing my project results, I have walked away with a fresh perspective on the U.S.-Mexico border rhetoric, with a renewed understanding of the gaps in current thinking about the topic. Going back to Plymouth Rock, white immigrants from Europe stumbled upon the Native Americans' land while seeking religious awakening, and when attempts to convert the natives backfired, tensions rose and an eventual war took place that displaced and killed the majority of the natives. A couple hundred years later, as America continued to develop, nativism started to spread across the nation, ironic because the country was essentially built on extreme anti-nativism. Trends throughout American history indicate that peaks in nativist viewpoints are often comorbid with the nation going through a recession, similar to the state of America in present day. Multiple gaps in thinking come to mind here, such as the calming of nativism that took place in the 1960s before the influence of a political leader orchestrated the comeback of nativism. There is a common theme that the performance of the country dictates how American citizens view immigrants, and it is alarming that many do not have the backbone to stand on their beliefs, because our nation being intrinsically nativist at heart would signal a huge example of cognitive dissonance given its history. For my call to action, we need to continue informing, because mass misinformation is hiding the troubling nature of nativist viewpoints at the border. I learned so much about the U.S. ethnic diversity narrative in just 8 weeks of taking time to inform myself on the U.S.-Mexico border. When I say informing, I don't just mean providing statistics or pointing out examples of cognitive dissonance. What matters most here are the stories of personal experiences from those who are directly affected by the border, such as the Tohono O'odham tribe, whose sacred land was threatened of being encroached upon by the call for a wall. We could also talk about the Darien Gap, a 60-plus mile journey through the treacherous jungle led by a cartel that will strip you of your last penny and put your life in serious danger. Also relevant is the 80-plus mile journey through Arizona desert in 100-degree heat that migrants endure just for a chance at the American dream. It is imperative that we listen to their stories, spread awareness on their efforts, and understand that they are coming to America because their only other option is death. To conclude my presentation, I want to bring up some powerful art pieces that also played a key role in my project. These pieces do an excellent job of informing populations of the dynamic taking place at the border, such as this bracelet designed by Haiti Alonso that only activates if 2 or more individuals are involved. I am also a huge fan of the pink seesaws that a pair of California architects put together to unite people on both sides of the border. The creator, Ronald Real, says, "If you do something on one side, it will have an impact on the other side. While both sides of the border are capable of taking action, the actions that occur on the U.S. side will dictate how Mexican immigrants are viewed, as it is on us to prove that they are indeed welcome here. The current actions of our country do not demonstrate that idea, and that is why nothing is changing. The only change taking place is a further division between both sides, orchestrated by political leaders that only have as much power as we enable them to have. Placing welcoming art with undertones of love and acceptance at the border could signify that we as a nation are ready to the narrative that has been sprung upon us, and it could send a powerful message that those with power do not define our country. Art is necessary in fighting this unjust narrative because art increases understanding, and the underlying issue at the border is a lack of understanding. As I wrap up my presentation with my references, I thank you all for listening and encourage you to continue informing. Have a great day.